So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews. We'll discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Paul Lees, who's founder at Bespin Labs and founder at Patronum. So, Paul, thank you for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, your businesses, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris. So, yeah, as you said, my name's Polly's. I'm the founder, the owner, CEO of Bespin Labs. We're a Google Workspace management development organization. We do sell Google Workspace, but our main focus is developing an application called Patronum, which is a user lifecycle management tool for Google Workspace. It manages things like the onboarding, the offboarding of users. We've recently just released a Google Drive and file compliance solution. So it gives you visibility over who has access to your internal data, because
Oh,
generally in organizations, people just share their files with any man, anybody on the
yes.
internet, and we will give people visibility over who their employees are sharing with, but also build in policies so that you can correct and fix some of those oversharing issues that organizations have to make sure that data is not left out in the open. So we've recently just done a big upgrade just before the Christmas break. And yeah, so we've got thousands of customers all over the world. And yeah, it's going well. It's going really, really well.
Really? Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's really interesting because I guess thinking about myself, we've been Google as an organization, but as an individual for many years now, and I guess it's something I like. It is very, very open in terms of you can, but as you say, there's things I've probably shared with people that I have no idea. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. So when we develop the solution, obviously we test the products ourselves internally. I was surprised at the people that I'd been sharing files with, or the people that have had access to my data. Because remember, if you're using Google Workspace, or even if you're using just Gmail, you share a file with a colleague internally or externally, and you give them full edit access to your
yes.
file. They can then share that file further, and you don't get any notification about that. So you might have shared a script or a business plan with somebody to edit and to collaborate, and then that individual could then share it on with many other people. You're still the owner of that data, but you might not have visibility over who else has access to
Yeah.
those particular files. So that was great from our perspective when we first installed it and we started dredging our internal systems to see, oh, I remember working with X, Y, and Z several years ago.
Yes.
We don't work with them anymore. Let's just cut those links so
Yeah.
that they don't have access to that kind of data.
Brilliant. So, speaking personally for the right now. So, literally, you could it's retrospective as well. So, you can literally overlay it onto a Google Drive or whatever a workspace and say this is historically what all the shares are that you currently have.
Absolutely, yeah,
Oh,
and you'll
right.
see it based on we focus mainly on the people. So who have you shared the data with? And we'll give you
Yep.
a long list of every single individual account, whether that's another workspace environment, a Gmail account, a Google group. Um, Recently, we worked with a very large, well-known advertising agency, and one of the senior execs left, and they shared one of the quite confidential files with a Google group externally. So you can create public Google groups. They created a Google group named after the business, and they were the only member. Now, when you do that, you don't see the membership when you're
Right.
outside the organization. So all they
Yep.
saw was, a name that looked familiar. So that kind of bypassed the general, very, very quick security reviews
Yes.
that people do. We were able to show them that those groups were actually public groups and not internal corporate groups. And so,
Interesting.
some nefarious kind of activities can be unlocked when it comes to using things like Patronum.
Interesting. Oh, fascinating. About because I mean, speaking a bit further, I guess, Google has been a tool I would imagine for lots of smaller businesses that probably don't know where they are right now, and I guess it's an overlap into data protection because massively, if I don't know who I've shared data with, Um, mm, cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Google already has in the workspace offering, Google already has data loss prevention element. So if you upgrade to, higher tiers within the Google platform, you can protect your data from data loss and data breach, but that tends to focus mainly on the content of the files. So
Yes.
does it have um, sensitive data? Does it have credit card details? Does it
Right. Yeah.
have, certain things that match particular patterns, and you can
Okay.
detect and label those, and then based on those labels, you can say, well, that can't be shared, and or this can only be shared with certain individuals. They already have that. What they don't have is just the basics, which is, well,
Yeah.
who am I sharing with?
The
I'd like to
visibility.
know individually the people that I'm sharing with, because sometimes a file may not be confidential from a GDPR perspective or a
Yeah.
HIPAA,
Yeah.
like a healthcare point of view, but it still might contain secrets that you
Yes.
don't necessarily want
Yeah.
to expose to the
Absolutely.
outside world. And so knowing that someone's actually now a competitor is quite useful when you can go, actually, I can see that these guys are now competing with us. I'm going to remove their access to every single file that they've ever had access to in my
Oh,
environment.
I'm sorry you've got me thinking now. So we should be talking about you, but it made I'm now thinking about that point about when you share a link, anyone with this link can have has access. I mean that's
That's even a bigger problem.
yeah,
So we
yeah. I mean
also
that's
have the option where we can say, show me how many files are just shared with the link.
yeah,
And that has lots of connotations. First of all, that link can then be shared,
yeah,
completely, and no,
literally.
you have no control over that. The other challenge is that AI can then get hold of that link and then start reading your data and then using that data to build its own models and information. And so they could
Wow.
start surfacing your information within AI-based queries. And so this is
Right.
a big field that is now starting to be
Wow.
explored and looked into. So yeah, we're doing great guns. I think what day are we now? It's the 8th of Jan. So we are 3 days into the kind of like business
Yeah.
new year, and we've had almost 50 customers install our product,
Wow.
which is just unheard of.
Wow.
And so it's really kind of resonating now that people have
Yeah.
come back into the offices. They've started to look as to what's going to be happening around, especially around AI and all those kind of things. And tools like Patronum are definitely playing their
Brilliant.
part.
Wonderful. So, Paul, if you don't mind, we'll start by looking back a little bit. Well, can you
Mm.
tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got into business, and why this particular one or these particular ones for you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'd class my background as a series of kind of fortunate accidents. I've always been the kind of person that dismantled things to understand how things work. I always remember going back years and years when I was in my childhood, demolishing my sister's toys. I always specifically remember a camera that they had that I completely undid, but I've always been inquisitive. I've always wanted to
Yep.
understand exactly how things work. And my first job was working at a university, a local university over in Salford. And my task there was to develop solutions within their existing Novell network. So for those who don't know about Novell, Novell was the leading
Yeah.
provider of networking services back
Yes.
in the early 90s.
Yes.
They were the cutting edge when it came
Yeah.
to networking. I was part of the university when the internet kind of was being brought into universities. That was about 91, 92. And so I helped Salford get on board with, going onto the IP network. There's a network within the UK called Janet. It's the Joint Academic Network, and I helped coordinate the universities kind of getting on board with that. And I was there developing solutions that helped monitor and manage student activities, who had lots of storage on their local
Right.
network drives.
Yeah.
I developed printing solutions. So if you were a student at the university back in those days, it was my fault that you were being charged for printing. So you were doing your theses, you printed. I developed software that would count all the pages and
Right.
then put a price on that,
Yeah.
and you would then go and collect your thesis, and you'd pay a certain amount of money for your printing. That then evolved to developing solutions for kiosks, where you went and topped up your credit for printing, for photocopying, and then that expanded. And not only did I develop it for the university, we then later within the University of Salford span out, me and some colleagues, into a commercial entity within the university,
Yep.
selling these solutions to other universities, both in the UK and around the globe. And so that kind of was my first step into developing a solution and then taking it to market.
Right.
And so that then evolved into a commercial entity. I left that commercial entity, and then started a Google Workspace reseller. That was in around about 2008. So I've been at the university for, probably about 10 years. And then, like I say, in 2008, created one of the world's first and eventually one of the Europeans' largest Google Workspace and Google Cloud resellers. And within that reseller, I developed solutions around migration. So when Google came to the market with what is now called Google Workspace, it was called Google Apps,
Yep.
or Google Apps for Business. And it kind of got shortened, and it became G Suite over time. And
Yep.
they've had lots and lots of iterations of different names. Back in the early days, there were no migration tools. In fact, Google's sales process was basically, you don't need to migrate into the email system. You don't need to take your historical email into the new environment. Just start from fresh. And a lot of
Right.
organizations just turned around and went, you're crazy. That just does not work. I need to have a
Yeah.
system that I'm in. I can't be flipping between two different systems. It's just not going to work. We were working with a number of organizations that were looking to go Google. And they were asking, how do I do this migration? And one of the organizations was on a Novell platform that
Yep.
I had a lot of experience in. And so we sat down and with a number of developers developed a migration tool for Novell GroupWise. And we were able to move all the email from that system into Google. That then started a business opportunity to then see, well, this one-off migration is not going to be the first. And it's definitely not going to be the last. And so we were then looking at other platforms, obviously Microsoft Exchange, but then we were looking at more niche products, Zimbra, Scalix, any email system that people were looking to migrate from, we had the capabilities of developing solutions for. And we then quite quickly became the go-to organization for email migrations for Google Workspace, as
Right.
well as Microsoft's Office 365. And so to date, that particular solution has migrated, hundreds of millions of mailboxes into both Google and Office 365. I left that organization in 2017. There was quite a lot of competition in the market by then. Google had just acquired one of our competitors, and the
Right.
migration business, it's quite stale. It's quite a boring kind of thing. Once you've gone through the excitement of moving
Yes.
to Google,
Yes.
there's not a lot you can do with a migration tool. You can go
Yeah.
through consolidation projects, acquisitions, and those kind of things. And there were a lot of those kind of projects that were coming about. But my kind of desire, my abilities were in, well, what's next?
Yes.
What happens next when somebody has gone into Google? And so like I say, I left the organization and created Bespin Labs. And Bespin Labs is a development organization. We're about 20. I never want it to be a huge organization. I want it to be quite agile, because focusing mainly on the development and providing the technical skills and the capability of
Yes.
developing a very good quality product without the baggage of having lots of salespeople and account managers and all the other stuff that tends to go when you kind of expand an organization. So we focused on the Google Workspace management. Um, and as I mentioned previously, all around the user onboarding, user offboarding, um, what happens when someone leaves an organization? Because now that you've moved from on-premise to the cloud, you're paying for the accounts that reside in
Right.
Google and Office 365. And so you want to deal with that because obviously you don't want to be paying for people who've long
Yeah.
since left your organization.
Yes, of
The
course.
problem with just deleting people is you delete all of their data. And as we discussed earlier, collaboration happens at the
Yeah.
user level.
Yeah.
And so if you delete a user in Workspace, you delete all their files.
All the documents. Yeah, yeah,
And
of course.
some of those documents may be shared internally, and some of them may
Yeah.
be active documents that are being used. So you need to manage that particular process.
Yes.
You need to make sure that data is transferred from one user to another or to somewhere else.
Yes.
And so that's what we do, and that's really where our focus is from a user provisioning perspective. It's
Yeah.
making sure, first of all, that the people, when they join your organization, have access to all the right resources. They're in the correct groups, they're in the correct chat spaces, they've got the right calendars, they've got the documents that they need, so that they're not stumbling around for the first couple of days, asking for access rights and all those kind of things. But more importantly, and from a security perspective, when somebody leaves the organization, we make sure that the data that they have created has been transferred to the appropriate place, whether
Yes.
that's just to the manager or it's through to a central shared drive or that
Yeah.
it's backed up. But it's also the smaller things that keep businesses running, like the calendar appointments. So, for example, if our appointment that we have in the diary and you suddenly decided that you were leaving your organization, under the normal circumstances, your calendar items would have been deleted. And I, as a customer of yours, would then be sat there going, well, why's Chris not turned up for this
Yeah.
particular meeting? Not
Yeah.
knowing that you'd left your
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah.
So
No, I
from a
get that. Yeah.
organization perspective, we can then transfer the appointments to somebody else, somebody
Yes.
more appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or we can just send out declines,
Yeah.
depending on exactly what the business needs. So
Yes.
and as I mentioned, the files and all those kind of things previously.
Amazing.
That's really where we're coming from. And our vision is to keep growing the product, keep growing more customers. We've created a Google Workspace community. We've got about 500 individuals in that community that they're always just chatting. We've got an online chat space within Google that everyone's talking and discussing challenges, issues. And we have
Brilliant.
a monthly webinar where we get together. Sometimes we'll bring in guest presenters, and sometimes it's just a general chat.
Yeah.
Prior to Christmas, we just had a Christmas quiz where we all wore Christmas jumpers, and we just had a few fun,
Brilliant.
chats and a quiz. And it's just bringing people globally together,
Yeah.
just to talk about the challenges and what's happening in the
Brilliant.
market.
Wonderful. So, as you've obviously developed the business is, and even before these ones, but what are some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome, Paul?
I think challenges. I think the biggest challenge is the vendor themselves.
Yeah.
Google in this instance. Um, so in my previous organization, we had conversations around acquisition. So Google wanted to, they wanted to expand their migration offerings, and they were looking to acquire migration technologies. And so we had conversations in that area. Um, Unfortunately for me and my business, Google acquired a competitor. So there's
Yep.
always that challenge
Yes.
of, overnight, your kind of revenue stream could just be turned off.
Yep.
Google could decide we're going to do that ourselves.
Yeah.
And so I've always been mindful of that. I always remember speaking to a senior representative from Google who basically described Google as a large bear, and we were a fly buzzing around the bear. And it's not the bear's fault that if they just turn, we get squatted.
Yep.
And so if we can kind of accept the fact that Google will, you know, inadvertently squat some of
Yeah.
our revenue streams, then we can kind of plan or aim to plan on the things that we want to do that we believe that Google won't
Yeah.
look into. So that's why, from our product perspective, we've got things like email signature management as one of the core kind of onboarding features, because that's always been something that people want. It's good from a marketing perspective.
Yep.
It's probably one of our best kind of features that people um, purchase the product for. That traditional email banner that we can just put onto everyone's email. Google could have and should have resolved that decades ago. The fact that they haven't, to me, says that they're not going to invest
Yeah.
in addressing that. And there are also other smaller kind of issues around, user management that Google will never look to address. So there's always going to be a space for tools like Patronum.
Yep.
Google's focus, and Microsoft's, and now AWS with their online
Yep.
suite, their focus is more around AI and how AI can help be your co-pilot or your virtual assistant inside the productivity suite. So long as
Yes.
we're not getting into that area,
Yep.
I think we're pretty safe from
Yep.
um, from being affected by Google. So for me, I think the biggest challenge is always working with the vendor and the ecosystem that
Yeah.
you're working in. Everything else is pretty straightforward. It tends to be it's just business. It's
Yeah.
the people. You get the right people in place. I'm lucky enough to have a network of experts in this particular field, and all the people who work with us within Bespin Labs I've worked with for at least a decade. So I know their pedigree, I know their backgrounds.
Yes.
The developers that we've got, they have a strong background in cloud-based solutions, and
Yep.
so making sure that we keep that core team together is probably another challenge. But at the moment, we can add junior people around the edges, and they then
Yeah.
get taught by the best in the industry, as far as I can see.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And what would you say are some of the tips you have for growing a successful business?
Um, Growing a successful business, that's a bit of a. It depends on what you see as growth. Um,
Yep.
there's a lot of organizations that just like to grow people
Yep.
from what I can see for no real reason. Um, my main areas of growth have always been bottom line profitability.
Yep. Great.
Um, and also customers. So if I can
Yes.
get more customers and I can make the product and the company more profitable, then that's growth as far as I'm
Yep.
concerned.
Yep.
Um, I believe in the growth of the organization is linked to the success from a customer's perspective. There's no point in me being happy with top line growth if my bottom line is getting eroded.
Couldn't agree
Um,
more.
yeah, there was a saying that it's all show for door, and making sure that the bottom line is
Yep.
is key. So I'm not a big believer in just growing an organization for the sake of growth. We don't have super aggressive business plans that say we must grow
Yep.
X amount this year. So long as we are making sure that everybody in the organization is well looked after, the customers are well looked after, the product is robust and is doing exactly what the customers have paid for, that for me is a good sustainable business.
Great. Yeah. No, makes lots of sense. And I think you're probably aware when we're a business coaching organisation. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just keen to know who the best coaches you work with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
Yeah, I had a coach stroke mentor back in the probably 2010s, and that was with the School of Coaching.
Okay.
And so I go down to London on I think it was like a weekly or bi-weekly basis. Um, and the guy that I was working with was a ex-consultant from Capgemini. And it was more to do with, business development, consultancy development, all those kind of things. And I got a lot out of that, mainly from a more of a personal perspective to understand what I'm like as a person, as
Yep.
opposed to looking at business problems, because business problems are always going to adapt and evolve,
Yep.
and there's always going to be, I think, there are going to be better solutions to business problems coming in the future,
Yep.
especially with the likes of AI. But one of the things that is good to reflect back on is, what are you like as an individual?
Yeah.
How do you work, and how do you work with your team, and what are your team
Yeah.
like, and how do your team respond? We recently went through an exercise of looking at, um, you know, from, I don't know if you've done this, but from a colors kind of perspective, you've got different kinds of people have
The insights. Yeah. So red. Yeah. We use
red, green, blue, all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
we use
Yeah,
disk, which directly overlays. So
yeah,
red
yeah.
is what we
So
call D for dominant. Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. So we were looking at that, and we found that the majority of people that are based in the UK were all red.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and so we're saying, well, we need a few more people who are a little bit more kind of green,
Yeah.
touchy-feely type of
Yeah.
individuals. Um, because when it came to problem solving and just getting things done, we were bang on the money.
Yeah.
But when it came to how we were then executing that internally, we could be a little bit too harsh.
Yes.
And so we've kind of identified that those kind of things
Brilliant.
are useful to look at.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, very valuable tools. I use them a lot in what I do because I think as you rightly say, it's useful to understand ourselves, but then understand our relationships with others,
Absolutely.
and just understand that if they're more people oriented, as you said, a bit more, that just a short conversation about how they are and their family is moves so far, takes a relationship so much further forward than straight into it, which
Yeah.
the more red or green types would.
No, I mean, I did the Myers-Briggs kind of assessment years and years ago, and it came out that I was an introvert, and not very comfortable in certain scenarios. And these kind of podcasts where I'm potentially facing a crowd of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, that to me is terrifying.
Right.
But you have to put yourself in those positions in order to get your word out, get your brand out,
Yes.
and all that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think I've changed with these kind of things. And obviously, I'm hosting a monthly
Yes.
webinar, so it's kind of helped me understand where I'm uncomfortable, and to kind of push those particular comfort zones.
No, it's great. It's. I remember a friend of mine talked about. It becomes easier when your purpose is greater than your fear or whatever
Yes,
or
yeah,
discomfort, whatever you want to call it.
absolutely, yeah,
It's purpose. I mean, I remember when we started these in COVID, and I think the phrase they used to say is having a face for radio,
yeah.
and it's like, you know. But it was so important, as I mentioned to you before we started, that we helped as many people as we could at that point because there was I'm sure you can remember, a lot of fear. Nobody knew what was going to happen. I mean,
Yeah,
it was literally for many people feeling like the world was ending, and it was.
yeah, and to be honest, that kind of working from home and that kind of model that caused quite a lot of technology companies to step up when it came to Zoom that we're on today,
Yep.
Google Meet, Google Microsoft Teams, and all the other video conferencing solutions that are out there. It kind of changed people's kind of opinions and approaches to this kind of stuff. Some of my other organizations are 100% remote. In fact, Bespin Labs is a 100% remote organization.
Okay. Yep.
All our people are dotted all over the world. We've got people in the US, we've got people in the UK,
Brilliant.
got people in India and over in Australia, and we provide a around the clock service just because we are remote. Now that obviously brings its challenges, but at the same time, the technology and COVID being in that situation has really forced us to look at how to work in a remote environment.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. Makes perfect sense, and it's fascinating, isn't it? Just the whole ability to work remotely. I mean,
Mhm.
what I also found interesting, and I was chatting to a friend the other day, was how for me, and I know there's reasons behind it, and I know ultimately Microsoft bought them, but like one of the biggest opportunities for a business I've ever seen was Skype at the point at which we went into lockdown, and yet
Hmm.
Zoom, and I appreciate we're probably now working on this technology is probably superseded significantly, but Skype should have taken over the world at that point. I mean, it was
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely
and Google should have, to be fair, because they had equally had an online video collaborations tool prior to COVID.
right. I
Um,
wasn't aware of that. Yeah,
and it was, only people who were in the workspace environment knew about it. Really, it wasn't particularly well promoted. As you said, Zoom was just everyone
I,
said it was a Zoom call, regardless of what it was. It was just let's get on the Zoom call.
Well, I remember because I specifically remember. I mean, I was very much. We weren't Skyping a lot, but it was definitely right. Well, let's Skype. Pre-COVID, it was let's Skype, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
and I was. I remember I was brought into Zoom probably 3 or 4 weeks into lockdown because one of my American colleagues said, "Well, this is the best one. We've tried it. This is the best one." I think primarily for lower bandwidth
yeah,
communication, it seemed to operate better with a low bandwidth, which is what we had. Or I have here and it sort of took over the world. And yet, if ever a company was best placed to take advantage of
yeah,
a
yeah,
global pandemic, so I just find it fascinating.
definitely.
I
No,
don't know
absolutely.
the politics behind it. I know ultimately, I
I, I,
think
I think it was just the ease of use of Zoom.
yes,
I don't think it was a business decision. I think what happened was shadow IT from a business perspective, but it was
yeah,
generally the fact that your gran could get
yeah,
Zoom on her laptop and have a conversation with her kids,
absolutely,
and the rest of the family. And it was that easy.
yeah,
Whereas Skype just felt a little bit more cumbersome.
yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I think that's the main reason why Zoom
Absolutely, I
Zoom
just find
took
it
over.
fascinating.
Yeah,
It's almost like having, I don't know, having be the only company with a car.
yeah,
It's
yeah. And
built a
then suddenly,
car,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and yet all of a sudden somebody else turns up with a car, and you go, "What?"
yeah,
But
yeah.
no, fascinating. So, whether it's from mentors or anything you've looked into in general, do you have any favourite quotes or sayings about business or success, Paul, that you can share with us?
Um, Quotes wise, I think the Bespin Labs. So Bespin Labs, people often call it Bespin and all this kind of thing. Bespin Labs is a name from Star Wars.
Right.
So if you think about Empire Strikes Back
Yep.
and the Cloud City,
Yep.
the planet that the Cloud City rotated around or was in its orbit was Bespin.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's the reason why I've called the company, because we're a cloud-based company.
Brilliant.
Bespin was the cloud planet. And so my favorite quote is a quote from Star Wars, which
Yep.
is from Yoda, which is the try not, do or do not. And that's always been kind of like my mantra for life,
Brilliant.
which is you have to try something.
Yeah.
You have to, sorry, you don't have to just try something. You have to resolve it. You have to do it.
Yeah.
And so from Star Wars, from Master Yoda, that has always been something that I've
Brilliant.
I had it as an email signature when I was in my early 20s. And so yeah, that's always been something that has resonated with me. Not
Love
just
it.
from a fact that it's just a bit of pop culture, it's also quite relevant just for the way that I live my life.
Yeah, pretty cool. No, I'm so glad you explained that because I think I pronounced it as best. Anyway, mispronounced at the start,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that's wonderful. Yeah, you've got me now. See, I'm going to always say Bespin now, so it's brilliant. And similarly, any favourite books or podcasts that you can recommend that you follow?
Um, Generally not. I'm not really into kind of listening to business podcasts. I've started going back over a lot of kind of old-fashioned books. I'm currently going through 1984.
Right.
So
Yeah.
just kind of reading those kind of things. There's quite a lot of things that was written about, decades and decades ago seems to be coming into play from a political perspective. So I'm not really into, podcasts specifically, um, apart from more from a personal life perspective. So I do listen to the likes of Joe Rogan.
Yep.
I do a lot of martial arts, hence the
Oh,
reason why
okay.
I listen to some of the Joe Rogan
Yes. Yeah.
episodes. So I do karate. So I'm a fifth dan
Oh,
black
wow.
belt at karate. So I have my own karate school, and I took up jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu,
Yes.
back in the year probably about 2000.
Wow.
Is when I really started to get into that, and I've now just graduated to be a purple belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which for people who understand the length of time it takes to become proficient at jiu-jitsu, I'm getting there when it comes to
Wow.
Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Amazing. Amazing.
And
So,
and,
I
that, and
mean,
then sorry, and then that goes back to the order element, because the gyms that I go to locally and around Manchester, they are typically full of 20 somethings. You're classed as a senior when you get to 30.
right,
I'm over 50.
right.
And so I'm in the, top 1% of the world when it comes to people at that level of jiu-jitsu for
Wow.
my age.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm fighting guys that are, half my age. And being able to, compete at that kind of level is quite good. And that's why the order element is, don't just try it, do it.
do it.
So yeah.
Wonderful. I mean, that bring a whole course of other questions, but what would you say you've learned about yourself throughout your journey so far, Paul? Across your life, not just business, but
Across everything, resilience. Yes, resilience from a business perspective. Things do go wrong. Stuff happens. You wouldn't be who you are without those kind of challenges and those kind of ups and downs. Definitely from a martial arts perspective, you will go onto the mats and you'll just have the worst day ever. And everybody will be beating you, and you just go out and you just think, you know what, I just cannot do this anymore. I'm too this, I'm too that. My limbs don't work as well as they should do. That guy's, a lot bigger and a lot heavier than me. That guy's a lot stronger and faster than me. And sometimes you just go, yeah, and sometimes you think it's just not worth it. And then you go back the following week, and then you have an amazing session and you just
Yep.
destroy everybody. The same happens in business. You might have a week where just stuff just constantly goes wrong, and you're just thinking, you know what, I've done my time. I've created a number of organizations. I've sold a number of organizations. I could live quite comfortably without doing what I'm doing. Why am I doing it? Why not I just throw the towel in? But then the following week, you'll have an absolutely great week. You'll have a chat with some of the customers. The customers will go, what you're doing is the best that we've ever seen, and we're so happy that you guys have come about and all this kind of stuff. You're thinking, yeah, we have got this right. We are doing things correctly. We've just got, it's things just can get a little bit bumpy.
Yeah, yeah. You're probably not surprised to hear that. Probably at least 50%, probably more like 60% of the people I ask the question about resilience is probably resilience and uh, relatively closely followed by imposter syndrome, which comes up in a different way for
Oh,
a number of
absolutely.
people.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah. I've
It's
I've been I've done presentations. So Google has its big event once a year. They call it Google Next. I've just, in fact, before this call, I just registered for this year's event. It's in Las Vegas. Previous years have been in San Francisco. I was asked to present at one of the Google Next conferences in front of an auditorium of thousands and thousands of people, and I'm just thinking, are you sure you want me? you know um because you see some of these guys and they're slick, and they've got they've got a way about presenting what they're talking about. um Imposter syndrome is definitely something that is always there. You're always thinking, how come it's only me that's seeing these particular problems? How come it's only me that's actually decided to create something like this? How come everybody's not doing this, or are there? Is there somebody else out there that's created a similar kind of product that's doing exactly the same thing?
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you look around and you think, well, no, there's not. Yeah, but I'm not unique. I can't be unique. I'd hate to think that what we're doing was so unique that there's nobody else on the planet doing this kind of stuff, because then that means that entrepreneurialism is dead, or innovation is dead. So there are other people doing really really great things It's just that you look and you think, it shouldn't be me. I'm just a normal guy from Manchester. I'm not the brightest in the room. I'm going to be, um, I'm not the greatest business leader. I'm not the greatest at this. But why have I managed to create a hugely successful company, not once but three times? Um, there must be something about it, or something must be something about me that allows for that to happen. But yeah, you're constantly kind of reevaluating yourself to say, well, you're not that good, Paul. You're not great.
So, if I was your coach, I would ask you why you're choosing not to accept the evidence of the reality around you.
I don't know. I think it would be a game. It
I
would be a
will,
case.
if I was a coach, I wouldn't let you get away with
Yeah,
that because
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
bullshit. But, no, but
yeah.
that's
No,
but it's a great
absolutely.
question. I mean, one of the things is what's the evidence? The evidence is you are great at what you do. You can't have three successful businesses to get to that point. And it's
Hmm.
really just interesting that the human condition tends to want to disqualify all the positives and just
Definitely, and
focus on
only look at the
the one
negatives. Yeah,
negative. Yeah, oh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that time I did
Completely.
that presentation didn't go very well. Therefore, I must be terrible. It's
Yeah,
just fascinating. And it's a big part of coaching. I think is to help people overcome those challenges. If it helps, the two things I talk about with I was talking about somebody yesterday about imposter syndrome. One was if we accept that 60 to 70% of successful people have imposter syndrome, that means when I'm in a room with loads of people, they're not thinking about why am I. They're all thinking the same. So if I'm thinking, oh,
yeah,
why am I? How do I deserve to be here? They're all thinking the same. So it's like if we all, there's a lot of energy going off there, Paul.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like if we all chose not to. But the other one, I heard Stephen Bartlett say, which was a little while ago, obviously Diary of the CEO. He said he loves imposter syndrome because he means he's in the right room and he's going to learn something. And I think that's a really cool way of turning it around and say, well, it's great. It doesn't matter whether I do or don't, or whether other people do or don't. I'm in the right place. It's like
Yeah, no, definitely.
if I'm if I'm definitely the cleverest person in this room, I'm definitely not going to
Then
learn.
you waste your time. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
so
completely agree.
it's a pretty cool thing. So I'm keen to get your thoughts on this, Paul. So in Action Coach, our organisation, our definition of a true business is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without its owners. I'm just
Hmm.
keen to know your thoughts on that in general.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the job of a business owner is to make themselves redundant,
Yes.
without a shadow of a doubt. Whether or not you do that is another question.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a choice. It doesn't have
for
to.
me, yeah, absolutely. For me personally, the business would run without me.
Yeah.
Even though I would not like it to run without me. I feel like I don't have a purpose if I'm not in the business.
Yeah, get that.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
my my role in the business as it stands today is I don't generally do any of the day-to-day
Yeah,
stuff. Um, Apart from I speak to customers. That's the only thing that I enjoy doing, is speaking to the customers, talking about the product, understanding what their challenges are, so that I can then feed that back to the rest of the organization.
yeah.
The company just runs.
Great.
Obviously, there's we're quite automated, so a lot of things that we do are automated. We've got people to make sure that things just get done. I see the role of a CEO or as a business owner, founder, as understanding A, the market, and B, the customers.
Yeah,
And so that's where I like to position myself. I talk to the customers, and I make sure that what we're doing is in line with where the customers are going. Because if the founder directors don't understand where the industry is going, they're going to be potentially creating things that nobody wants. And so
yeah,
that's why I'm kind of keen to make sure that we're constantly speaking to the customer.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's almost like uh, d d what's the right word? So, firstly, it's a can work without the owner because, like, if you
Hmm.
love what you do, why would you ever want to stop? It's just
Exactly.
accepting
Yeah.
that they're in the middle. But I think it's almost like the sense of deconstructing the role that we often put in, whether it's founder or CEO, or because there's different parts. I was funny enough. I was talking to someone that would puts themselves very much in the chairman situation, and by saying that they view chairman as being strategic, i.e., they do
Yeah,
none of the day to day. They as soon as they can in a business, and this guy's had several businesses, but very similar to you. As soon as he's got a business to a point, he will put a CEO in as quickly as he can to do the operate, deliver the business. But his role is chairman of strategy, and I think it's
got you.
really valuable to say, okay, as a business owner, founder, whatever you want to say, I probably am doing three things. I'm CEO, I'm chairman, and I'm owner.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
which
And
of those do I most
yeah,
enjoy?
and I think it depends on obviously the scale of the organization, the size of the organization, the number of people that you're managing, and those kind of things. But also, what is it you enjoy? Because if you've created, as your previous guest has stated, if you've created several businesses, you should be comfortable enough to not work at all. So
Yes.
that individual is doing that because they enjoy doing what they do.
Yeah.
Me personally, I enjoy speaking to the customers and getting involved at that particular level. So it's more for me about enjoyment rather than you know creating the chairman type of position and so on.
Yeah. No, I completely get that. I really do. I think it's just, yeah, it's just an interesting. I always ask the question because I think it's quite an interesting concept because a lot of people that I work with are still struggling to get out of the business, if that makes
Hmm.
sense,
Yeah,
and
makes
it's
sense.
still
Absolutely.
very dependent on them. Yeah, no, thank you. And so looking forward a little bit, Paul, what does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
I think the biggest challenge I think all businesses are going to be facing this particular time, AI.
Yeah,
Will AI come along and remove the need for certain technologies, certain products, certain services? So that for me is the main kind of worry from
yeah,
a business perspective. Growth wise, we're just going to keep talking to customers. We're just going to keep making sure that we acquire more customers and we deliver what the customers are looking for.
great, great. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And also then, I'm keen to know what you'd say to anyone that was thinking of going to business right now.
Just do it.
Cool.
Yeah, I think there are too many reasons not to create their own business. You've got to be willing to take those risks. You've got to be willing to. In fact, my daughter's boyfriend has just created a business, and we have quite a lot of conversation. He's in his early 20s. We have a lot of conversations with him about, the fact that he's having to take a pay cut just to get the business up and running. And it's those kind of pains that you've got to go through in order to, get something established, get out and speak to customers, understand what it is that you are providing as a business, and then just allow the organization to grow. And then at some point you decide, right, this now has to be a full-time entity, and just go for it. So yeah, absolutely, just go for it because
Brilliant.
um, you would regret it if you didn't.
Brilliant. And no, great advice for anybody. And if you started again, Paul, is there anything different, significant you do differently, do you think?
I think that's a really dangerous thing to contemplate. There are obviously mistakes that have been made, and but you could say, well, if I didn't make that particular mistake, would I still have learnt particular things around certain areas? And so, a common question is, what would you tell your younger self? And
Yeah,
I don't think I'd say anything, because of well, Marty McFly, so, did theoretically did nothing wrong, came back and he's living a completely different life. Now,
absolutely.
we at the end of the film we see that he appears to be happy. He's got a great big car and he's got lots of new things, but he is a different person in a world that is completely different to what he left.
Yeah,
And is he actually happier in that, in a bigger house, in a flashier car than he was when he was pre going back to the future and all those kind of things. So I think
yes,
yeah, and there's obviously the butterfly effect films and all those kind of things. So
yeah,
from my perspective, I would say absolutely nothing.
brilliant. Love it. Paul, it's been fascinating talking to you, and wish you all the success that you are clearly going to have with the new technology you're delivering at the moment.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate it.
well, I really do. I know it's wonderful, and as you said from my questions earlier, I could so see the importance of that, especially for businesses and organisations that are in a situation where they've allowed lots of sharing to go on and they don't know where they are. So I can really see that. Um, uh, so for anyone that's interested in getting in touch with you or your businesses, what would be the easiest way to do that?
Easiest way is the Patronum website. So www.patronum.io,
Yep,
or you can just do a search for Bespin Labs, and that will lead you through to the Patronum website. You can book a
brilliant,
meeting if you want to have a chat, request for a demo, all those kind of things.
brilliant. Well, look, it'd be great to swing by another 6, 12 months and just see what's happened with the development of this business and the technologies.
Absolutely.
But for now, thank you so much for your time.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks.